The silent vigil. The sky above Ashen Ridge turned violet as the Krell fleet entered orbit. Miravis didn't look up from her workbench. Sparks flew from her welding torch as she reinforced the colony's water filtration system, her dark hair tied back with a grease-stained ribbon. The alert sirens had been wailing for 20 minutes, but she had 3 more seals to complete before the bombardment began. "You're still here?" The voice startled her. Captain Thane Reeves stood in the workshop doorway, dust from the streets coating his uniform. His weathered face showed more curiosity than concern. "Someone needs to make sure we can drink tomorrow," Mira replied, not pausing her work. "Assuming there is a tomorrow." Thane crossed the workshop, stepping over scattered tools and equipment. "The evacuation shuttles are loading." "You should be on one." "Should be?" Mira finally looked up, meeting his gray eyes. "Are you going?" He smiled slightly, the expression softening the hard lines around his mouth. "Fair point." The first explosion shook the building. Dust rained from the ceiling, but neither of them moved. Mira finished her weld, inspected the seal, then set down her torch. Through the workshop's high windows, they could see the orbital strikes beginning, precise, calculated destructions of the colony's defensive installations. "They're very efficient," Thane observed, moving to stand beside her at the window. His shoulder brushed against hers. "They've done this before," Mira said. "Dozens of worlds, probably hundreds. We're just another mark on their conquest map. Another blast. Closer this time." The building groaned, but held. Thane glanced at the reinforced walls, then back at Mira with something like appreciation. "You rebuilt these supports last year. I like things that don't fall apart." She turned to face him properly. "Why are you really here, Captain?" "Thane," he corrected. "And I'm checking on stubborn engineers who won't evacuate. I'm not leaving." Mira's voice was steady, certain. "This is my home. Every pipe, every circuit, every foundation stone, I helped build it. Running feels like letting them erase everything we made." Thane studied her for a long moment. Outside, the bombardment continued, but inside the workshop, something else was building. Understanding, perhaps, or recognition of a shared madness. "I deployed here 5 years ago," he said finally. "Supposed to be a 2-year rotation, but something about Ashen Ridge." He gestured at the window, at the colony beyond. "It gets under your skin. The people here don't just survive, they build. They plant gardens in the red dust. They name the mountains. They make a place that's worth defending." Mira felt her chest tighten. "So you're staying too?" "I'm staying." He moved closer and she caught the scent of him, sweat and gunpowder and something underneath that was just human. "Someone needs to protect stubborn engineers." She laughed, despite everything, despite the world shaking around them. "I can protect myself, Captain." "Thane," he insisted again. "And I'm counting on it. We'll need everyone who can fight, build, or improvise. Preferably all 3. The building shook again, harder this time. Thane caught Mira's arm as she stumbled, steadying her. Their faces were suddenly very close. For a heartbeat, the war faded. There was just the warmth of his hand on her arm, the intensity in his eyes. The shared understanding that they'd both chosen to stand when running made more sense. "We're probably going to die," Mira whispered. "Probably," Thane agreed. His thumb traced a small circle on her wrist, barely perceptible. "But not today. And not tomorrow. Maybe not ever, if we're stubborn enough." Above them, in the cold vacuum of space, Commander Vexthor of the Krell Empire watched his weapons paint fire across the colony's surface. His tactical display showed the expected results. Defensive systems destroyed, infrastructure damaged, population centers disrupted. Everything proceeding according to protocol. But something troubled him. The communications channels from the surface weren't filled with panic or pleas for mercy. Instead, there was mostly silence. Organized, purposeful silence, the kind that suggested preparation rather than paralysis. "Status on civilian evacuation?" he asked his second officer. "Minimal movement detected, Commander. Approximately 12% of the population has attempted to leave. The rest remain in place." Vexthor's secondary arms twitched with unease. "That's unusual." "Perhaps they're in shock, Commander." But Vexthor had conquered enough worlds to know the difference between shock and something else. Something he didn't yet have a name for. On his screen, the colony of Ashen Ridge continued to burn. Yet somehow it also continued to stand. The adaptive Heart 3 weeks into the occupation, Mira's workshop had become the heart of the resistance. What once shaped irrigation systems now forged weapons from impossible materials. Thane arrived before dawn, as he did every morning, finding her bent over a disassembled mining drone. "Tell me that's not what I think it is," he said, setting down 2 cups of recycled coffee. Mira didn't look up, her hands moving with practiced precision through the drone's circuitry. "If you think it's a mobile explosive device with a range of 3 kilometers, then yes. It's exactly what you think it is. That's insane." But Thane was smiling as he handed her the coffee. "Insanity is our best weapon." She finally met his eyes, and something passed between them, the same electricity that had sparked during that first bombardment. "The Krell fight with logic and superior firepower. We fight with chaos and creativity." He moved behind her, ostensibly to examine her work, but his chest pressed against her back as he leaned over her shoulder. "Show me how it works." Mira's breath caught. His proximity sent heat through her despite the cold morning air. "The drone's navigation system becomes our targeting system. Its cargo bay, normally used for ore samples, now carries compound charges. We program it to seek Krell energy signatures." "Brilliant," Thane murmured near her ear. His hand came to rest on her waist, steadying himself as he leaned further to see the device. Neither of them acknowledged the touch, though neither moved away. "The real genius is here." Mira indicated a cluster of rewired components. "These are their own scanner parts, salvaged from a crashed Krell fighter. We're using their technology against them. You're terrifying, you know that?" Thane's other hand joined the first, both now resting on her hips as he studied the mechanism over her shoulder. "And you're in my personal space, Captain." "Thane," he corrected automatically. "And you haven't moved away." She turned in his arms, the motion bringing them face to face, impossibly close. "Maybe I don't want to." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Thane's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing dust from her cheek. "This probably isn't the time. There's never going to be a good time," Mira interrupted. "We're at war. We could die tomorrow, or today. So if not now, when?" He kissed her then, soft at first, then deeper as she pressed against him. Her hands found their way into his hair, his arms tightened around her waist. The workshop faded away. The war faded away. There was just this: warmth and connection, and the desperate human need to feel alive in the face of death. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Mira rested her forehead against his. "That was overdue," Thane finished. "By about 3 weeks," she laughed breathlessly. "I wanted to kiss you during that first bombardment. I wanted to kiss you the moment you refused to evacuate." His hands traced patterns on her back. "You stood there covered in grease and welding burns, telling me you wouldn't abandon your home. And I thought, this woman is extraordinary. Flattery will get you everywhere." "Captain, it's Thane," he said again, kissing her once more. "Say my name, Mira." "Thane," she whispered against his mouth and felt him smile. A knock on the workshop door broke the moment. They separated reluctantly as a young woman entered, barely 18, with sharp eyes and a datapad clutched to her chest. "Sorry to interrupt," the girl said, though her knowing smile suggested she wasn't sorry at all. "I'm Nix Callahan. I've been documenting the resistance efforts." "Mind if I interview you both?" Mira straightened her clothes, feeling heat in her cheeks. "Interview us? Someone needs to record what we're doing," Nix said earnestly. "How we're fighting back. Future generations should know we didn't just roll over." Thane exchanged a glance with Mira. "Future generations? That's optimistic. That's necessary," Nix countered. "Hope is a weapon too, Captain. Maybe the most important one." In orbit above, Commander Vexthor reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans had destroyed 3 supply convoys, crippled a landing craft, and turned one of the Krell's own automated factories against them. Each attack showed impossible ingenuity, weapons that shouldn't exist, tactics that defied military logic. How did they weaponize a civilian irrigation pump? His tactical officer asked, genuinely baffled. Vexthor studied the wreckage images. The irrigation pump, designed to move water through agricultural fields, had been modified to spray corrosive chemicals at Krell armor. Simple, brutal, effective. "They see warfare differently," Vexthor said slowly. "Every tool is a weapon. Every setback is a lesson. We fight to conquer. They fight to exist. Should we intensify the bombardment?" Vexthor considered this. Every time they struck harder, the humans adapted faster. It was like fighting smoke. The more you grasped, the less you held. "No, I want to understand them first." "There's something here we're missing." something that makes them dangerous in ways our empire has never encountered. Below in the workshop, Mira returned to her explosive drone while Thane coordinated patrol schedules. Their hands brushed as they worked side by side. Nyx watched them both, her datapad recording not just facts, but hope. The kind of hope that survives bombardments and builds futures in the ruins of the present. The ashes that bloom, the Krell attack came at midnight. Thane was in the command post when the first blast vaporized the eastern residential sector. By the time he reached Mira's workshop, half the building had collapsed. Mira! He tore through rubble with his bare hands, ignoring the cuts, the blood, the smoke choking his lungs. Mira! A weak cough answered him. He found her pinned under a fallen beam, blood soaking through her sleeve, but alive. Her eyes focused on him with relief and pain mixed together. Took you long enough, she tried to joke, but winced as he lifted the beam away. Don't talk. Save your strength. His hands shook as he examined her injuries. A deep gash in her arm, possible broken ribs, countless bruises. I'm getting you out of here. She gripped his hand with surprising strength. The devices. My workshop. I need to save you, Thane said fiercely. He lifted her carefully, cradling her against his chest. Everything else can burn. The underground medical bay was chaos. Injured colonists filled every available space. Thane refused to let anyone else tend to Mira, sitting beside her cot as a medic cleaned and stitched her wounds. He held her hand through it all, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, a gesture that had become their silent language. You should be commanding the response, Mira said through gritted teeth as the medic worked. I am commanding the response. I'm keeping you alive. When the medic finished and moved to the next patient, Thane pulled his chair closer. Mira's face was pale, her eyes heavy with pain medication, but she smiled when he kissed her forehead. I was scared, he admitted quietly. When I saw the workshop collapse, I thought... His voice broke. I'm not that easy to kill, Mira whispered. She brought his hand to her lips, kissing his knuckles. It takes more than falling buildings to stop me. I love you. The words spilled out before he could stop them. I know it's fast. I know we're in the middle of a war, but I love you, Mira Voss, and I can't lose you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I love you too. Have since that first night, when you chose to stay, when you understood why I couldn't leave. He kissed her then, gentle and careful of her injuries, pouring everything he felt into that connection. When they parted, she was crying in earnest, but smiling too. Marry me, Thane said suddenly. Right here, right now. I don't want to waste another moment. That's the pain medication talking. Mira laughed weakly. It's not. I've never been more certain of anything. He cupped her face in both hands. We could die tomorrow, but today, right now, I want you to be mine. I want to be yours, officially, completely, for however long we have. Yes, Mira breathed. Yes, Thane Reeves, I'll marry you. Nyx found them an hour later, Mira resting in Thane's arms, both of them simply holding each other. The young woman's eyes were red from crying. She'd lost her parents in the attack, but she managed a small smile. I heard you two got engaged, Nyx said softly. In the middle of all this death, you chose life. Thane looked up at her. We're sorry about your family, Nyx. The girl's jaw tightened. Don't be sorry. Be victorious. She held up her datapad. I've been recording everything. Every name, every face, every story. My parents, all the others, they're not forgotten. I won't let them be forgotten. Mira reached out her uninjured hand. Come here. Nyx approached hesitantly. Mira pulled her down, wrapping an arm around the girl. You're not alone. You understand? We're your family now, all of us. Every survivor in this colony. We fight for them now, Thane added, including Nyx in their embrace. For the ones we lost? We carry them with us. Nyx broke down then, sobbing into Mira's shoulder. They held her, these two people who'd found love in war, and gave her what everyone needed. Connection, purpose, hope. Above them, Commander Vex Thor watched the casualty reports with something he'd never felt before. Guilt. He'd ordered the strike that killed hundreds. His weapons had torn families apart. But what disturbed him more was what happened afterward. The humans didn't scatter. They didn't surrender. Instead, they gathered. In every destroyed sector, survivors emerged to help each other. They carved names into walls. They shared food and water. They built funeral pyres and sang songs in languages Vex Thor didn't understand. They're honoring their dead, his intelligence officer reported. Every death is recorded, remembered. The survivors are painting names on their weapons, their vehicles, even their buildings. Vexthor studied the images. On one wall, someone had written hundreds of names in careful script. Below it, a message in human standard: we remain. We remember. We return. What does it mean? The officer asked. It means we're not fighting an army, Vexthor said slowly. We're fighting a memory. And memories can't be killed. The realization chilled him. Every human they killed became fuel for the survivors. Every strike made the resistance stronger, not weaker. The Krell Empire had conquered 63 worlds. They'd never encountered anything like this. In the medical bay, Thane and Mira held each other as Nyx began to document their story. Outside, the colony burned. But inside, in the spaces between heartbeats, hope bloomed in the ashes. And that hope, more than any weapon, terrified an empire. The Memory War II. Months after the attack, Mira stood before the Resistance Council, her arm healed but scarred. Thane stood beside her, not as captain and engineer, but as husband and wife. Their wedding had been brief, 10 minutes in the medical bay with Nyx as witness, but it meant everything. We need to change tactics, Mira said, gesturing to the holographic map. The Krell expect us to fight for territory. Instead, we fight for memory. An older council member frowned. What does that mean? Thane stepped forward. It means every operation carries the names of those we've lost. Every weapon, every vehicle, every soldier, they bear witness. We're not just fighting to win. We're fighting so our dead are never forgotten. Nyx projected images on the wall, weapons etched with names, walls covered in memorials, fighters with tattoos honoring fallen family. I've been broadcasting these images to other colonies. The Krell monitor our communications, but they can't stop the message. We're showing the galaxy that humans don't break. This is psychological warfare, another council member said slowly. Against them and for us. Exactly. Mira touched the scar on her arm, a reminder of the night she almost died. Every time the Krell see our memorials, they remember they're not fighting soldiers. They're fighting history, our history. And you can't bomb history into submission. The council approved the plan. Within weeks, every corner of Ashen Ridge became a memorial. Names covered walls, streets, buildings. Nyx organized storytelling sessions where survivors shared memories of the fallen. These sessions were broadcast across hidden channels, reaching other human colonies, other resistance cells. In their private quarters, a small room carved from the underground network, Mira and Thane found moments of peace. She would fall asleep in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. He would wake before dawn to watch her sleep, grateful for every breath she took. I'm pregnant, Mira whispered one night. Thane froze, then pulled back to look at her. What? The medic confirmed it today. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach. I'm scared, Thane. Bringing a child into this world, into this war. He kissed her, deep and tender. You're giving us the ultimate reason to keep fighting. Not just to survive, but to build a future worth living in. Tears streamed down her face. What if we lose? What if the Krell? We won't lose, Thane said with fierce certainty. Because we can't. That child you're carrying, they're already a symbol of hope, of defiance, of humanity refusing to surrender even one generation to these invaders. Mira laughed through her tears. You're right. We're bringing life into death. What could be more human than that? They made love that night with new intensity, knowing their bodies were creating the future even as the present tried to destroy them. Afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Thane traced patterns on Mira's skin and whispered promises to their unborn child. Nyx documented everything. Her broadcasts had made her famous among the resistance, the young woman who turned grief into purpose. She interviewed survivors, recorded memorials, and built a comprehensive archive of human resilience. Why do you do this? A Krell intelligence officer asked after they captured one of her data stores. The recording showed Nyx's face, young but ancient, with sorrow and determination. Because every story I save is a victory. Every name I record is an act of war. You can burn our cities, but you can't burn our memories. And as long as one of us remembers, you've lost. Commander Vexthor watched the recording 3 times. Then he did something unprecedented. He began his own archive. Every report, every observation, every strange human behavior. He documented their adaptations, their memorials, their refusal to accept defeat. Why are you doing this, Commander? His second officer asked. Vexthor didn't look up from his work. Because someone needs to understand them. Our empire conquers through force. But the humans, they conquer through memory, through will, through something we don't have a word for. What will you do with this information? I don't know yet. Vexthor pulled up an image of Mira and Thane's wedding, captured by surveillance drones. Two humans surrounded by death, choosing love. But I think we're fighting the wrong war. Every tactical victory makes us weaker. Every human death makes them stronger. It's backwards, impossible, and yet... He trailed off, watching as more images filled his screens. Humans rebuilding, humans remembering, humans standing. Below in the colony, Mira placed Thane's hand on her stomach. Too early to feel movement, but the life was there. Growing, defying. We're going to win, she said quietly. We already have. Thane replied. We're still here. Still standing, still creating life. What greater victory is there? In the darkness, Nyx recorded their words. Another story, another memory, another reason why humanity would never truly lose. The Eternal Stand, the final Krell assault, was scheduled for dawn. Every tactical indicator showed it would be decisive, enough firepower to turn Ashen Ridge into molten glass. Vexthor stood on his command deck, watching the preparations, feeling nothing like victory. Commander, the human resistance has requested a meeting. His communications officer reported. They're sending representatives. Denied. We attack it. One of them is pregnant, sir. Our scans confirm it. A civilian female, approximately 4 months along. Vexthor's claws tightened on the command console. A pregnant human, coming to face him. Allow them aboard, but maintain attack readiness. Mira walked onto the Krell command ship with Thane at her side and Nyx following behind. Her pregnancy showed now, a gentle curve beneath her armor. She'd refused to hide it, refused to stay safe below. This was her world, her child's future, and she would defend it herself. Vexthor studied them with his multiple eyes. The pregnant engineer, the steadfast captain, the chronicler who'd made humanity's suffering into a weapon. They should have been defeated. By every metric, they'd lost. You come to surrender, Vexthor stated. We come to offer you surrender. Mira replied calmly. Her hand rested on her stomach, a gesture of both protection and defiance. The Krell commander's secondary arms twitched in surprise. You cannot be serious. My fleet will annihilate your colony within hours. And then what? Thane asked. You'll move to the next colony, and we'll resist there too. You'll kill more of us, and we'll remember them. You'll burn more worlds, and we'll rebuild. You've been fighting us for 6 months, Commander. Have we gotten weaker? Vexthor was silent. They hadn't. If anything, human resistance had spread across 3 systems. Other colonies had adopted their tactics, their memorials, their refusal to accept defeat. Nyx stepped forward, holding up her datapad. I've documented everything, every attack, every death, every act of resistance. These files have been broadcast across the galaxy. Other species are watching. They're learning from us. You're not just fighting humanity anymore, Commander. You're fighting an idea. Ideas can be crushed, Vexthor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Can they? Mira moved closer, fearless despite being surrounded by enemies. You've tried for 6 months. You've killed thousands of us. You've destroyed our cities, poisoned our land, hunted us through every shadow. And yet here I stand, pregnant, building the next generation. Tell me, Commander, have you crushed the idea? Vexthor looked at her stomach, at the life growing there despite everything. Why did you come here? Why risk yourself and your child? To show you the truth. Mira's eyes burned with intensity. You can't beat us. Not because of our weapons or our numbers. Because we don't know how to lose. Every defeat feeds us. Every death makes us remember harder, fight harder, build harder. You think you're winning a war, but you're just creating more resistance. Thane moved beside his wife, protective but proud. We've already won, Commander. Can't you see that? We're still here. Still loving each other. Still bringing children into the world. You've thrown everything at us and we're still standing. That's victory. Your fleet waits to destroy my colony, Mira continued. Fire those weapons and you'll kill me, my husband, our unborn child. You'll add 3 more names to our walls, 3 more reasons for survivors to resist. And somewhere, in some underground shelter, someone will broadcast our story. The pregnant engineer who faced down a fleet. The captain who stood beside her. The child who never got to live. And that story will spread. It will inspire. It will multiply. She placed both hands on her stomach. Or you could leave. Withdraw your forces. Tell your empire that humanity isn't worth the cost. Because we're not going to stop, ever. You can kill us, but you can't defeat us. We've already decided that defeat doesn't exist. Vexthor stared at them. These impossible humans who'd turned every rule of warfare inside out. He thought of his archive, the months of documentation showing human resilience. He thought of the Empire's resources being poured into this endless conflict. He thought of the fear in his soldiers' eyes, the whispers that humans couldn't be broken. "You're insane," he said finally. "We're human," Nyx corrected, "which means we're stubborn, creative, and too stupid to know when we're beaten. Lucky for us, being too stupid to lose looks a lot like winning." Silence filled the command deck. Every Krell officer waited for their commander's response. Below, on Ashen Ridge, thousands of humans went about their daily lives, preparing for death or survival with equal determination. "Stand down," Vexthor ordered quietly. "Commander?" His tactical officer sounded shocked. "I said stand down. Cancel the assault." Vexthor turned to Mira, something like respect in his alien features. "You win, engineer. Not because you defeated us, because you made victory meaningless. We could destroy your world and gain nothing. You just rise somewhere else." Mira nodded slowly. "Thank you for understanding." "I don't understand," Vexthor admitted. "But I recognize when a war is unwinnable. The Empire will hear my report. Humanity is to be left alone." As they returned to the surface, Thane pulled Mira close. "That was incredibly reckless." "That was incredibly necessary," she countered, leaning into him. "Our child deserves to be born on a free world." Nyx recorded everything, tears streaming down her face. "We won. We actually won." "We never lost," Thane corrected gently. "That's what they could never understand." 6 months later, Mira gave birth to a daughter in the rebuilt medical bay. They named her Dawn because she represented the beginning of a new era. Thane held his wife and child, watching the sunrise through the window, knowing they'd protected more than just their colony. They'd protected the idea that humanity could never be truly defeated. Above, the Krell fleet had withdrawn. Other colonies were rebuilding. And everywhere humans carved names into walls, told stories of the fallen, and prepared for the next challenge. Because that was what humans did. They stood. They remembered. They returned, and in standing they had already won.